All right, good morning, guys. Good morning. I wanted to share with you just a short idea. I think a really interesting Gemara and a little bit of a short idea, and to try to focus a little bit on perhaps what is one of the most fascinating halachas of all of Purim. So, we are beginning. Gemara. So the sheet you have in front of you is a page from Gemara Maseches Megillah, Daf Zayin Amud Beis. You see where I have it over here, the underlined lines right by the asterisk? See that? So let's take a look at this together. Amar Rava. Rava said as follows. Mechayiv inish levasume bepuria, adelo yada bein ar haman lebarach Mordechai. Now, I have no question that you know the meaning of this Gemara, right? Just from the context, right? What is mechayiv inish levasume bepuria? Which literal translation is a person is obligated to become fragrant. That's the literal translation, right? What's the actual translation? Was he smiling? So I see. What does it mean?
Are you in again?
I'm sorry?
Are you in again?
I'm not a beginner. I'm not in word assassination, so no, I'm not trying to get anyone. It's paused. It's paused? Pause for the share. Yeah. Or wine, or drug, or something. Okay. It's clearly something in that family. Okay, good. Word assassination is paused for the duration of the share. Good. So now, if I were to ask you, what's the Gemara saying? Drunk. A person is obligated to go ahead and become drunk on Purim. Now again, like I said, the lashon of levasume doesn't really mean drunk, it means fragrant. A fragrant. But we'll interpret it to mean right now that a person is obligated on Purim to become intoxicated until they don't know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. Okay, that's the statement of Rabbah. Now the Gemara tells a story. Watch this story. Rabbah, now remember, always remember the author. So Rabbah is the author of this statement. Okay, now the Gemara tells us a story about Rabbah. Rabbah and Rabbi Zera decided to have Avdu Su'udas Purim B'Hadi Adadi. Rabbah and Rabbi Zera decided to have their Purim Su'uda together. What happened? Ifsum, they drank a little too much. Come Rabbah, Shachte l'Rabbi Zera. Rabbah got up. What does Shachte mean? Shachte? I'm sorry? Drunk, or like Shosek, good. Good. What?
Shaker.
Like shikr. Good. Same, almost some of the similar letters. Good. Shachte. What does shachte sound like? Shecht. What does shecht mean? Kill. Rabbah got up and he killed Rabbi Zera. Guys, like this story in the Gemara. It's Rabbi Zera. Rabbah got up. Rabbah drank a little bit too much. They both drank a little bit too much, and Rabbah went ahead and killed Rabbi Zera. Now, it happens to be that there are different commentaries on this Gemara. Some say that it doesn't literally mean that he actually killed Rabbi Zera. Others say, Tamar Shah brings down, he says that Rabbah made Rabbi Zera drink too much, and essentially Rabbi Zera got alcohol poisoning. That he was, but either way, the point over here is he died, he was about to die, he was close to dying. And again, the Gemara attributes this to Rabbah's actions. So Rabbah, right, they drank too much. Rabbah, we'll just call Pasha Pshat. Rabbah killed Rabbi Zera. Okay. I mean, not okay, but you understand what happened. So watch this, incredible. Next morning, okay, the effects of the alcohol wore off. Rabbah realized what he did, and what did Rabbah do? He davened. What did he daven for? If you're Rabbah, what are you davening for? Forgiveness. Good. So Rabbah was a little bit more ambitious in his tefillas. What did Rabbah daven for? Bring him back. So Rabbah davened for Tchias HaMesim. Rabbah says, oh my gosh, what happened over here? I killed Rabbi Zera. I can't believe this occurred. He davened for Rabbi Zera, but we brought back to life. So the Gemara says, and it worked. So first of all, just incredible, right? Again, the Gemara brings down that there are certain keys, certain kochos, certain abilities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds on to himself and does not outsource them. One of those is the Mafteach Shel Chaya, Gemara Maseches Taanis, right? The key to life. So you have kind of stories of people who brought the dead back to life, but those stories are few and far between because that is a unique koach of the Ribono Shel Olam. In any event, you see over here the greatness of Rabbah, that Rabbah went ahead and brought Rabbi Zera back to life. So just follow the progression over here, right? So step one of the Gemara, what did Rabbah teach us? What was step one? Don't drink too much. Wait, no, that's not what Rabbah said, right? What did Rabbah say? Right? We'll talk about the lesson. What did Rabbah himself say in the Gemara? What did he say? Mechayiv inish levasume bepuria ad lo yada bein arham lemarach Mordechai. By the way, what does the lashon of mechayiv mean? Mechayiv? Obligated. Person is obligated to drink a bit more on Purim until I don't know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. Good, right? And then it's part one of the Gemara. Part two, what's part two of the Gemara? What's part two? The story. Rabbi and Rabbi Zera have Purim Suda together. They drink. What does Rabbi do? Kills Rabbi Zera. That's part two. Part three of the story, the morning after. Rabbi realized what happened, killed Rabbi Zera. What does Rabbi do? Davins to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring Rabbi Zera back to life, and Rabbi Zera is brought back to life. Good. That's part three. Now part four of the story. Watch this. This is great. Lashana, next year Purim comes. Rabbi comes over to Rabbi Zera. He says, listen, Rabbi Zera, I have a great idea. Nei seimar v'na avid sudas Purim bahadi hadadi. I have a great idea. I was just thinking about it. Right? I don't remember so much from last year, but from what I remember, we had a really good time. Right? So why don't we do Purim Su'uda together? Now, if you're Rabbi Zera, what's going to be your answer to this request? Run, right? Absolutely not. Not a chance. I'd sooner have better chance of having Suda with Haman, right, than going and sitting down with Rabbi again after everything that happened. So the Gemara says, what happened? Amar lei. So Rabbi Zera says, thank you, but no thank you. Lo b'chol shaita v'shaita misrachish nisa. Essentially, miracles don't happen all the time. Okay, we got lucky, right? In other words, you killed me. Baruch Hashem, you davened for me. Thank you for davening for me. Kadosh Baruch Hu brought me back to life. That's fantastic. A miracle occurred, but miracles don't happen all of the time, and you certainly can't rely on miracles. So, boys, this is the entire Gemara, right? This is the extent of... there are no other Gemaras about drinking on Purim. This is all that Chazal have to say in the Gemara about drinking on Purim. Okay, so now if I were to ask you, when you look at this Gemara, like, what's your takeaway message? So now, okay, so remember, in general, what's one of the most difficult things you'll learn in Gemara? Most difficult things, right? You have fantastic Rebbeim, but Gemara says, what's difficult about Gemara?
Finding the deeper meaning. Excellent, good. What else? The actual halacha, right? In other words, I go through a sugya, and it's fantastic, and I have all the shitas and everything like that, but like, if somebody, right, you ever have this experience where you have the Gemara, and like, you really, like, you feel like you own it, you got it, you're walking out of shir, Gemara's under your arm, and somebody will tell you, so by the way, like, what do we do in that case? And often your answer is going to be, I have no idea. I can tell you what the Machlokes is. This is in general one of the hard parts of learning Gemara, about taking the abstract conversation and discussion of Machlokes and plugging it into halacha l'maisa. So now, if I were to ask you, based on this Gemara, how should a person conduct themselves on Purim? What would you say?
I mean, it seems like in the Gemara, like, you shouldn't drink at all.
Right. Why?
Because he killed him.
Right. Excellent. So first of all, so that's the position of the Mateh Ephraim. The Mateh Ephraim, Ephraim Margulis, he brings down that when you look at the progression of this Gemara, because guys, remember, how does it start? Right. Let's go through it. Step one. I need to bore. Right. Step one. What was step one?
They get drunk.
Right. That's not step one. That's step two. What's step one?
Obligation.
Right, good. Statement of Rabbah. A person should drink on Purim. Good. Step two. Story, right? They have Purim Suda together. They get drunk. Step three. Rabbah kills Rabbi Zera. Step four. Brings him back to life. Step five. Invites him next year, right? And step six is the decline, right? Not doing that. So Mateh Ephraim says it's clear from the Gemara that since the Gemara brought the story of Rabbi and Rabbi Zera after Rabba's statement, that the Gemara is coming to say, do not follow Rabbah. Don't do it. Now again, does that mean don't drink on Purim? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the Mateh Ephraim clearly says that halacha l'maisa, the story is brought to discredit the statement of Rabbah. That's why the story is there.
Maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be right in the middle. It could say, like, you have an obligation to drink, but if you drink too much, this is what happens.
Incredible. Baruch Shekivanta. Excellent, lady. Excellent. So I started with the Mateh Ephraim because the Mateh Ephraim is the most extreme position. But the truth is, most of the Mefarshim, most of the commentaries really kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Right? So, for example, really what Levi just quoted is exactly the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch, well, actually I should say it's the Ramah. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins, Shulchan Aruch says, so guys, obviously you also, I know you know this, but I'm telling you this anyway.
obviously we're skipping a whole bunch of steps, right? You really never go from a Gemara to a Shulchan Aruch, right? Shulchan Aruch is like the bottom line halacha. There's a whole bunch of steps in the middle, but for the purposes of just the short time we have together, I'm skipping kind of to the punchline. So this is the Shulchan Aruch in Aruch Chaim, Siman Tov Reish Tzadik Hey Sif Beis. Look what the Mechaber says. Chayiv inish levasume bepuria ad lo yada bein Araham lebarach Mordechai. So the Mechaber of Yosef Karo quotes the statement of Rabbah. He quotes it in halacha, which sounds like you drink on Purim. The Ramah comes along with the Ramah says, Haga, v'yesh omrim de'ein sarich lehishtaker kol kach. Don't get drunk. Don't get so drunk, Ella. So what should you do on Purim? Yishteh yoser milimudo. Drink a little bit more. Drink a little bit more than you're normally accustomed to. V'yishan, and go to sleep. Now that going to sleep is the Rambam. Right, so the Ramah is quoting a whole bunch of different opinions, according to Kolbo, according to the Rambam. So the Ramah says like this: truth is, don't get drunk. What's the Ramah's logic for saying don't get drunk? What's his logic? What's his logic? The story. So what should you do? What should you do? Drink a little bit more than you're normally accustomed to. The Ramah says, and fall asleep. Now, guys, what's the chap of falling asleep? What does falling asleep have to do with this Gemara?
So you don't do anything bad?
So number one, when you're asleep, you can't really get yourself into all that much trouble. That's an excellent point. Good. Why else? So listen to this. The logic is, what did Rabbah say? You're supposed to drink on Purim until you don't know the difference between what? Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. So the Rambam, or the Ramah, quoting the Rambam, says, well, it's very simple. If you go to sleep, if you fall asleep, most of us are not dreaming about Haman and Mordechai. So if you fall asleep, by definition, you are in a state where you don't know the difference between Ar Haman and Baruch Mordechai. So it's a technical way to fulfill the statement of Rabbah. And the Ramah goes on, and look what he says. Ve'echad hamarbe, ve'echad hamamit, o bilvad shiachaven libo l'shamayim. And that's really the bottom line of the Ramah. The Ramah says, whether a person drinks a lot, or whether a person drinks a little, the idea of drinking on Purim is supposed to be an activity that is done with Kiddusha. The goal, in fact, is interesting. Chazal have a term. They have a term for when you get drunk, so drunk that you're not in control of your actions. Anyone know what this expression is called? Probably never came across this yet. I'm sorry?
Blackout drunk.
Blackout drunk, right?
Blackout.
Blackout.
Yeah.
Like blacking out.
Yeah.
Right, good. So Chazal had a different term for it.
Yeah.
Chazal call it lot drunk. Lot drunk. Shikrus o shalot. What does it mean to get lot drunk? Right? Remember the story in Bereshis? After the destruction of Stone, Lot gets drunk. Remember what happens when Lot got drunk? He married, right? He had relations with his daughters. He impregnated both of his daughters. Pretty crazy story. Shikrus o shalot means a person gets so drunk that they don't know the difference between right and wrong. That is unequivocally usher and unequivocally counter to everything we believe in Yiddishkeit. If a person drinks to the point where they don't know the difference between right and wrong, that there's no Kedusha in that. There's no Kedusha. Not only is it not Kedusha, but ein avera gedola mizo. Sometimes, again, a person gets into that state, and they could commit the worst kind of behaviors, engage in the worst kind of things. So Chazal didn't call it blackout drunk or wasted. They had a better term for it, lot drunk. So you can keep this in the back pocket. If you ever see someone who's just totally going, you can say, wow, that guy is lot drunk, right? That's what it means when you get to a point. So this is important. Because the Ramah says, okay, so we see there's a machlokes, all right? If we kind of see, and again, just because we're short on time, I didn't want to give you all the sources, but like, you have the Mata Ephraim, who's on one side of this. The Mata Ephraim says, from this Gemara, you see no drinking on Purim. Now, it doesn't mean no drinking. There's always a mitzvah to have wine on Yom Tov, so you can have a glass of wine with your Suda, but absolutely no mitzvah to drink any more than normal. The proof to that is the Gemara brought the story of Rabbi killing Rabbi Zera. That's what happens when people get drunk. That's the Mata Ephraim. He's the most extreme. And then after that, you have kind of like more, I would say, like varied opinions. The Kolbo, the Rambam, who all are essentially saying the same thing. Drink a little bit more than you normally drink, right, on Purim. But again, fall asleep, don't fall asleep. But the idea, echad hamarbe ve'echad hamamit, Ubilvad sheyechavein libo l'shamayim. The goal is whatever you're going to do, it should be a form of avodas Hashem. Drinking is never an ends. It's never an ends. If in Yiddishkeit, any time that we use alcohol, it's always a means to something. So let's talk about this in just a moment. So if I were to ask, let's take a step back. Why does wine play a central role on Purim? Like, where does this concept come from of drinking? Let's even go, right, with the idea of, let's say, the Kalba and the Rambam, that you're like the Ramah. You're drinking a little bit more than normal. Okay, why? Well, what's the role of that on Purim? What would you say? Simcha. But why, in other words, there's a mitzvah of Simcha on Yom Tiv. Right? V'samachta b'chagecha. And no one says you should drink like more on Yom Tiv.
I thought people do.
Well, people do. They definitely do. Right? But it is not a mitzvah to do so. Never confuse what people do with what's actually like obligated. So Yom Tiv, there's a mitzvah to have wine at your Seudah. But there's nothing on Yom Tiv that says, on Yom Tiv, drink more. Or drink a little more than you're normally accustomed to. Or drink until you fall asleep. There's no such concept like that. So you're saying good. That obviously the mitzvah of drinking on Purim is associated with Simcha, but why is the Simcha on Purim different than Simcha any other time? Yes?
Because you're supposed to cover yourself. Like, not do what you usually do. So, like, dress up and drink more.
Beautiful. So you want to say like Purim is a day of kind of like v'nahapachu, like a little bit of like opposites. So the same way like you wear a costume, right? The normal me is not there. Yeah. So drinking is part of that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Good. Any other thoughts?
It's enjoyable to almost like party a little.
It's enjoyable to party a little. By the way, I want to tell you it's interesting. Rabbi Nachman has such a fascinating idea. Rabbi Nachman says that part of Purim, what's interesting about Purim? How would you describe Purim as a day? What's the one word? And this is not word assassination, right? What's the one word you would use to describe Purim?
Fun.
Fun. Good. How else can you describe it?
Crazy.
Crazy. Party.
Happy.
I'm sorry? Happy. Good.
Overwhelming.
I would definitely agree with that. Good. What else? If you notice, I'm surprised no one used the word silly. There is a little bit of silliness on Purim. Right? Like that grown man who wears the tutu? And you're like, why? Come on, why? People don't show him, please. Any other custom than that, right? And he walks into Megillah and he's walking around town, and you feel bad for his kids, you feel bad for his wife, right? And everything. He's not going to remember anything tomorrow. But meanwhile, everybody has it on their phone. They've got videos. It's on Instagram already. It's on everywhere, right? So it's strange, right? I don't know. We're not really a silly people. We're kind of serious, just in the way we approach things in general. Rabbi Nachman says so beautifully, he says that sometimes in life a little bit of silliness is good. That sometimes the risk in life is things become too heavy, too serious. And if it's too heavy and too serious all of the time, it's too much. Everybody needs a little bit. And Rabbi Nachman therefore says, there's almost like an institutionalized silliness. Right? Like that guy who never puts on a costume, right? So, that's the person for whom Purim was created for. It's like, come on, buddy, lighten up a little bit. Everybody needs to learn how to be silly just a little bit. Now, again, some people are too silly too much of the time. So what do we call that kind of person? Over silly, right? that's the technical term. Over silly. Good. Or really in Judaism, what we call a person like that is like a letz. Like a person that's a clown. That's a clown. And people like that, they don't really accomplish all that much in life because everything is a joke and everything is silly. But a little what we call a shtick silliness. A little bit on one day out of the year. Rabbi Nachman says, is good for the neshama. It's good. It's good for a person. It's good to laugh. Sometimes it's good not to take yourself so seriously. And it's good sometimes just for a little bit, just to be able to just laugh and be a little bit silly in a controlled way. So let's go back for a second to the alcohol, right? So we've got the idea of changing your norms. We have the idea of simcha of good. Why else? What is this concept of alcohol on Purim? I'm sorry? The story. What do you mean?
It was a lot of it involved that.
Excellent. Remember, when Esther invites Achashverosh and Haman to a party, What does the Megillah call the party? What does it call it? It doesn't say Mishteh. What does it say? Mishteh Yayin. Esther invited Achashverosh and Haman to a wine tasting. That's what it was a Mishteh Yayin. So the Talmud Hagim brings down, he says that everything on Purim happened together with wine. Everything happened together with wine. So as such, because the nace unfolded, so to speak, with wine, therefore wine, and by the way, that's why also on Purim, there's no concept of drinking anything, like hard alcohol. Doesn't really have anything to do with Purim. Right? People might like to drink that, that's fine, but that has nothing to do with Purim dafka is yayin. It's dafka wine, because at the end of the day, the entire nace happens surrounded by wine. Good. There's another piece, and with this I'm gonna finish up. There's a beautiful. I actually found this by accident. I never knew who it was. In the back of the Gemara, it's actually very exciting because I have still my Maseches Megillah from like when I was in high school. So like it has all of my translations and everything under it. It's really, it always makes me feel good to open it up. In the back of the Gemara, so they have like what they call like a Yalkut Mefarshin, which is just like a compilation of all different commentaries. And I saw quoted in here an opinion of the Chachmas Manoach. Chachmas Manoach. The Chachmas Manoach says like this. He says, what does it mean that you're obligated to drink on Purim until you don't know the difference between Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai? Cursed is Haman. So what does that, by the way, what does that sound like, not knowing the difference between Haman and Mordechai?
It sounds like the similar concept of good and bad.
Excellent, right? That's what it sounds like, right? It sounds like drink until you don't know the difference between good and evil. What's the problem with that? What's wrong with that? What do we call that kind of drunkenness? Low drunk. Oh, everybody remembers that, right? Low drunk. That's low drunk. You know. So what does that mean? The Chachmas Manoach. Yes.
That like either way, like either the good guy is the winner or the bad guy is the loser. Either way, it's the same thing.
Meaning what?
Meaning like the good still wins either way.
Ah, beautiful. So beautiful. Right? So meaning on a deeper, almost like hashkafic level, it's like Hakadosh Baruch Hu's plan comes to fruition. Hakadosh Baruch Hu's plan works out, so to speak, right? No matter who's the winner.
Either way, it's
Beautiful. It's great. So I'll tell you the Chachmas Manoach adds on something. He says something amazing. He says like this. He says, in life, everyone has their Hamans and their Mordechais. Listen to this. What does this mean? He says that everyone has their Mordechais. My Mordechais are the people I like. Right, Mordechai, right? I mean, look, you know how the Megillah ends, that Mordechai was Ratzei L'Rov Echav. He was beloved by most people. In the Jewish community, to be beloved by most people is like, it's like a nes nigla. Like it's a miracle. It's a miracle. No one, you understand, Moshe Rabbeinu, do you know when all of Klal Yisrael fell in love with Moshe Rabbeinu? Do you know when?
out of Egypt.
Right? It would be great. When he died, right? People respect dead people. They have difficulty respecting living people. So Moshe, right? That's why you ever go to a levaya, right? Everybody stands up and they take the aron out. Dead people were very good at treating well. Living people is a different story. So even though, everybody jumps on the fact Mordechai was beloved by most of his brethren. Most is great. Most is fantastic, right? So everybody has their Mordechais, the people who they like. And everyone has the Hamans, the people who they don't like. Right? Boys, right? Do we all have our Hamans? The people, I don't want to be around them. I don't want to deal with them. I'm not literally saying that they're like part of Amalek, but I like them almost as much as I like Amalek. In other words, I just don't like them. I don't like them. So they're my Hamans and they're my Mordechais. What is the avoda of Purim? The avoda of Purim is Achdus. The avoda of Purim is to learn to come together as a klal. The salvation of Purim begins when Esther says to Mordechai, Lech kinos es kol hayuhudim. Get everybody together. So the Chachmas Manoach says the entire avoda of Purim is the ability to go ahead and make shalom and have good relationships with your Mordechais and with your Hamans. Guys, you ever have a falling out with someone? Ever happened to anyone here? Right? Bad falling out? And you want to reconcile. What's the hardest part of reconciling with someone, of making up with someone? What is like the hardest thing to do?
Admitting you're wrong.
Right. Admitting you're wrong. Good. Excellent. What else? Along those same lines. Right? In other words, if I want to reconcile with someone, what do I have to do?
Make it wrong and then they
right? I have to like engage, right? I have to go over to that person. So sometimes, especially in those situations where you know you're wrong, it's really hard. It's really hard. Or even if you know they're wrong, but you just want to diffuse the negativity. It's hard to go over to a person and engage them when you know that you don't have a good relationship with them. The Chachmas Manoch says something beautiful. He says, this is the role of alcohol on Purim. He says, why did Chazal institute a little bit of wine? Because a little bit of wine, you ever see people sometimes, there are different people, when they drink a little bit, they act different ways. But how can you tell, who's a really good person? How can you tell? When they drink a little bit, if they're hugging everyone and kissing everyone, right? Assuming that it's gender appropriate, right? And they're b'shalom with everyone. And tzaddik, it's so good to see you. And this, Chachmas Manoach says that sometimes a little bit of alcohol kind of takes down the barriers a little bit in a good way, and allows shalom to be created. He says that is the entire avoda. Adilo yada bein arhaman lebarach Mordechai. Create achdus. Purim is a day where you know what? No one is my Mordechai and no one is my Haman. Everyone is my brother. And by the way, you see this reflected a lot of times in Purim. The halacha is normally someone asks for tzedakah, you have every right to ask a million questions, right? A million, all right? Where's it going? Who is it from? Why do you need it? On Purim, what's the halacha? Purim, the halacha is anyone who asks, you're supposed to give. How much you give, that's up to you, but you're supposed to give. Why? Because Purim is a day of achdus. Chayiv inish levasumi bepuria adilo yada bein arham lebarach Mordechai. What's the role of drinking on Purim? It's ultimately, again, to reconcile, to make shalom with your Hamans, to make shalom with your Mordechai. So why am I sharing this with you? Because this is incredibly important. So to tell you that you're too young and you shouldn't drink on Purim. Look, you have parents, so your parents are going to tell you what to do, what you shouldn't do. But here's what I do want to tell you: is understand that you have an obligation to act responsibly on Purim, and an obligation to behave responsibly on Purim, and an obligation to make sure that everything you do creates a kiddush Hashem, and not chas v'shalom, a chilul Hashem. That's true every day of the year. But especially on Purim, unfortunately, what you see by Purim, and especially a lot of times, and again, you'll see it by all kinds of people, adults, teenagers, is that people just allow the beauty of the day to descend into chaos. So if you're passed out in a corner, that's not Purim. If you vomit on yourself, that is just disgusting, right? And it's certainly not Purim. If you walk around in an inappropriate way, not Purim. If you do something that is just degrading to yourself, to your mishpacha, that's not Purim. How much you're going to drink or not going to drink, I'm hoping that each of you have homes and parents who are going to set proper limitations for you. I'm not your father, so I can't tell you what to do, what not to do. The only thing I can tell you is that each of us, not for you, I want to tell you something. I love Purim. And I myself, can I tell you what I do for Purim? I give Daf Yomi every morning. And on Shushan Purim, the Chaver always says, let's start later. We actually start earlier. And the reason I do that is because then for me, I know that is a mechayev. Right? That creates an obligation for me. So that means after Purim Suda, everybody goes home, I have to prepare the daf. Because I know that I have to prepare the daf afterwards, that keeps me honest. Again, I enjoy Purim, I'm beautiful. But I know, okay, I got to keep it together. Right? Because, again, I have a responsibility. So I do that for myself because I know that without that, I probably would get a little too carried away. I know myself. I like having a good time. I like a beautiful suda. It keeps me honest. All of us need something to keep us honest, or like everything just falls apart. So whether a person drinks a lot or a person drinks a little, again, follow the directives and the directions that your parents, Emirat Hashem, are going to give you. But boys, what I'm just trying to show you is the mitzvah of drinking on Purim
is a mitzvah of Kiddusha. The goal of it is to remember the miracle of Mordechai and Esther. The goal of it is to create achdus. The drinking is not an ends. The drinking is a means for higher Kiddusha, to bring Yidden together, to create achdus, to no longer have any Hamans or any Mordechais, but to just have achdus within Klal Yisrael. That's the goal. So just keep that in mind, because look, I'm sure you guys are going to be out and about on Purim, and you're probably going to see a lot of people doing a lot of different things. Life is all about seeing other people doing different things and saying to yourself, you know what? If that works for that person, that's fine. But that's not for me. That's not for me. You know, there's a mitzvah the Gemara brings down. V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. What does it mean to love Hashem? So there's a lot to talk about with that, but quickly the Gemara says, Shetehei Shem Shamayim Misahiv Al Yadecha. My obligation is to make sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes beloved in the eyes of others through my actions. Each of us is an ambassador of the Ribono Shel Olam. And when people see us, we are representatives of God. That is an awesome responsibility. To know that how I behave and what I do is going to impact people's impression and opinion about HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And boys, that's not just me, that's all of us together. So we should just aim to Meretz Hashem have a beautiful and Kiddusha-filled Purim. And if your parents let you drink a little bit, okay, that's between you and them. But make sure that whatever you're going to do, now you know the reason why we do what we do. The goal of Purim is not to get drunk. The goal of Purim is to bring yourself to a different level of achdus, a different level of Kiddusha. And Chazal understood that sometimes little things help me to get there. But whatever you're going to do it with responsibility and do it with Kiddusha. You know, the best litmus test is, Rav Pam, Zech Tzadik Rav was Rosh Yeshiva of Torah V'das, is he says, how do you tell if you had a good Purim? How do you have a good Purim? He said, how do you feel the morning after? Right? If the next morning you're like, that was incredible, and I am ready to go, and I am ready to daven, and I'm ready to learn, and I'm ready to be with the Chevra, and I'm ready for another Shushan Purim Mesiba. If that's how you feel, that was a good Purim. If ultimately the next morning you're like, oh God, I can't stand up straight, right? Or I don't feel like I could get out of bed, that wasn't Purim. That was your own party. Okay, see, you had a great party. A great Purim leaves you energized the next day. A great party leaves you flat on your back the next morning. Each of us have to decide what it is that we want. So whatever you're going to do on Purim, do it with responsibility, do it with Kiddusha, and in Meretz Hashem, I know that we're all going to have a beautiful Purim. I see that hopefully you guys are going to make it to all the Rebbeim's homes, including mine. I have to give Rabbi Grossberg my time. Would love for the Chevra, Meretz Hashem, to come over on Purim, to fabreng a little bit, to sing a little bit, to dance a little bit. And Halavai, Purim, is a geula. It's a redemption that's embedded in Teva, in nature. So hopefully we'll have such a beautiful and uplifting Purim that will be zocher to a geula that's not embedded in Teva. We want a supernatural redemption. Redemption of Mashiach, redemption of Eretz Yisrael, redemption of the third Beis Hamikdash, and hallelujah, we zocha Meretz Hashem Hirab Yameinu. Amen. Boys, I wish you a great rest of the day. Hatzlach with everything. What's next?
Second virtue will start at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, perfect. All right, boys. Good day.
Word assassination.
Back on. Sheesh,